Good afternoon and a very merry old Christmas Eve to all our viewers, and welcome to Wild Earth live at the watering hole this afternoon, where we are starting at KwaMaritani at Pilanesberg National Park. I am Jaapie Potgieter and I'm going to be your host for this afternoon, and we are starting out with what seems to be a southern-masked weaver building a nest. He's already progressed quite a bit. From where I am, it doesn't look too far off the ground, but you can see it's right on the edge of the branch. And as it took off, we can see the way it's shaking. What a good way to protect this little ball, which will obviously be the little safety net for where the chicks will be hatched and where they will be raised for the first 2 odd weeks or so. A very industrious little bird, this male. Indeed, quite an important time of the year. These guys do form colonies in these areas. You do have a lot of competition between other males. Okay, now I see. I wanted to say that was quite an odd angle, but I can see it's a steep bank, so it is over the water, which is something that they usually do for protection. That way it eliminates a lot of the creatures that could pose it a threat. And you can see it's attached quite tightly to that branch. Very, very strong construction. And as far as I know, some of these little birds can have as many as 25 attempts during a season like this before they build one that the female finds satisfactory. And rightfully so. She's got to have high expectations. She wants to raise her chicks in there. You can imagine something like this is quite exposed to predators like snakes, for instance. And that's why the construction and choice of branch, like this thorn branch that this little bird chose, is very, very meticulously thought through and very, very essential to the survival of the chicks. That's of course if they stay in the nest. What a neatly woven little ball. And this male spends an incredible amount of time building this little nest. Ari, good morning to you and greetings to you there in Amersfoort in the Netherlands. And a merry old Christmas to you. Colin Eames, thank you so much. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing day, and we will probably find a lot of interesting little things today, and what a good start already. Gina, I hope I answered your question. You asked why the nest is at the end of the branch. Well, you can see as this bird is landing and taking off, it's shaking quite vigorously. It's quite a thin little branch, even though it's quite strong. And that is to make it inaccessible to the larger predators. Something that might want to try its luck and move all the way out to the end of that branch to try and get to the eggs. And to be fair, one of the creatures in this region that really enjoys stealing birds' eggs are the monitor lizards. But they're not the only reptile. One that has a bit of a better chance, even though it's placed at such a precarious location, is the snake, called a boomslang, and other snakes can get up there if they are light enough. They might make it all the way to the end, and they might be able to have success in stealing the birds' eggs. Of course, then there's also other, not predators, but other disturbances, other nuisances, like the Diederik's cuckoo, or brood parasites, other birds that lay their eggs within the nests of birds to have them raise their chicks. Quite a fascinating phenomenon. Now this looks like a good choice of a place to build a nest. It's quite well protected. Doesn't look like a large colony from what I can see. At the moment I can only see the 2 nests. The Daniel bot. You're saying you're watching this from your first visit to Africa and you're loving the wildlife and you wish you had more time in the Kruger. That is indeed something that I think we all wish for. Even though I live in that area, I still wish that I had more time in the Kruger. Especially this time of the year, I think it must be quite a relaxing atmosphere. So the Daniel bot, just to elaborate on what I mean by having a good time in the Kruger Park, I'm sure today everywhere there's fires lit. You can smell the scent of the dry wood burning, and everybody's got their plans. I'm pretty sure people will be taking it easy this afternoon, maybe a short drive out, and wherever the camps provide a view out onto the river, that would be the first prize, of course. Sitting out, having a good look and hoping for something to come down and have a drink. Now we can see, even though there's no chicks in this nest yet, this bird's very, very busy collecting grasses from all over. Strong, thick grass blades, long grass blades, which it carefully weaves in there. And what a pretty amazing structure. It's got one entrance, a little bowl shaped. And it's an art in itself. The more capable the male of building a nest, the more likely he is to get females to nest in it. Heidi Swiss, hello to you too. I hope you're enjoying this show that this little male weaver is giving us. Now it looks like this male is just doing some final touches. I can see from the dull green color of the grass, if you compare it to the bright green colors of the newly sprouted leaves of the trees around, it looks like this nest has been going for a little while, and it's probably almost done at this stage. Ooh, amazing. And here we have two very, very famous and well known birds. Two hardy-das. And I find it a little bit interesting that they are foraging on what seems to be quite barren ground. Normally these guys like the lawn-like areas with green grass. But I'm assuming there's a lot of insects and a lot of little things moving around there. They are moving near the fallen plant matter and branches. You can see they've got quite large eyes and a very, very narrow, long beak. So carefully scouting the area as they're moving along, picking up whatever we can find with their excellent eyesight. Now, what a careful moving bird, quite a large bird. And I can see a lot of little insects, a lot of, I'm not sure if they're butterflies or whatever they are, flying across the screen. So by the looks of it, it looks a little overcast. But it looks like they're having some success there. I hope they have a good old Christmas Eve. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to head over to Latoria, where I heard there might be some baboons to have a look at. And what a view! A troop of baboons. One just casually sitting on the water's edge. Doesn't seem too bothered by anything, and then a few young ones drinking. You can see a few young males moving about here. It looks like there's a nice little breeze going. Baboons are definitely some of my favorite to watch. Always busy, especially if it's a larger troop. And judging from the way these guys are sitting right on the water's edge, I'm assuming that they've got quite a relaxed demeanor going throughout the whole troop. Oh, here comes a big one. Very, very big male and a big female. There we go. Sound like one of them got a little bit upset about something there. Not sure what exactly it might be. Is it not where the camera is facing? But interesting to note that big male baboon came in with the female, and I can see she's got a swollen behind. So I'm assuming she's in heat currently. And maybe that might be why he is moving this closely with her. Now these big males, there's always competition between them. They're the ones that come from outside. The females are the one that stays within the group. So you can see as she moves off, he's immediately turning around and chasing her, and acting quite protectively. Oh, look at that. Giving the evil eye to one of the younger males coming in. Now, of course, when the female's like this, it means she's in heat, and this is when you see these big male baboons at their best. They put their best foot forward. You can see, have a look at the carefully grooming going through, passing a little bit of time. You can see even the female's grooming herself. Whoa! That was quite interesting. I can't say I really saw exactly what happened there. At first, I thought that big male might have gone at the female, but I think what happened is one of the younger males maybe came a little bit too close, and the big male didn't like that. So just decided to teach him a lesson or re-establish his authority. So here we go. Just an inspection. Now that's something that happens quite often in baboon society. The bigger, stronger males always compete with the younger ones, always at the periphery. They're always watching, and as they grow older and stronger, they do tend to establish their rank within the group, within the males. A big troop can have various males. If you see a female with what looks like a little one moving past, but yeah, the males coming from outside, having to work hard to earn their position and rank. There's a lot of competition between them, and we see fights between them happening all the time. And the younger, more subordinate males are usually on the outskirts, and they can get severely punished if they step out of line by the bigger males. But also, these guys fight extremely hectically and severely, and they can seriously injure each other when there's a serious fight going on. But luckily for the most case, the sounds are more dramatic than the fights actually are. It's generally just the younger, more subordinate animal backing down. You can see a big male like that, sitting like he owns the watering hole, full cheeks. Not sure what he's chewing. That looks like two rather large males, and a third one. Looks like there's quite a few in this group. Now, I might be mistaken. Camera angle here and getting my size comparisons wrong here, but generally the larger, bulkier baboons are the bigger males, and there's often around popular spots like watering holes. That's where the action happens. There's something in the water there. Not sure if it's something that dropped from a tree or a fish. Caught that baboon's attention. Interesting to notice how regularly they're coming to drink. Like all of them have, or a lot of them have come down and at least have a little sip of water. Now, in East Africa, this time of the year, I'm sure it's quite hot, quite humid. That's why they're in the shade. And that one up higher in the tree. What a good viewpoint there. Looks like quite a comfortable spot. Looks like a younger male. Not quite as bulky yet. And these guys will gradually move up the trees nearby if the troop decides to sit, and from there they'll have some good spots to have a look out. In that way, not only do they serve as an early warning system to the troop on the ground, but they also kind of show their worth to the general group. Excuse me. Yeah, quite a decent sized group this. It's a nice big male baboon. Yeah, judging from the amount of big males here, and I know here in East Africa these baboons do generally have a little bit of a thicker fur. They seem bulkier than they might be, but a large established troop often have quite a few larger males. So I think seeing all these males around is an indication that this might be quite a well established, quite a healthy troop. Which means fierce and intense competition. I can see all of them gathering now. All the little ones, of course, being very social and not quite exposed to the top level politics yet. All just gathering under that low hanging branch for the shade. And there we go. Some disciplined, more discipline being enforced there. You can see each time one of the larger baboons come in, we see the little ones moving off and making space, showing some healthy respect. When it's hot and humid, sometimes the tension rises a little bit. With changes within the authoritative structure, tensions can also build, and that ensures for the frustration and the intense noises that we're hearing. Now that was quite interesting to watch. When that big baboon came down, and that was one very big baboon. Most of the others around that stretch just gave way. So maybe he's had a bit of a rough day. And you find that tensions are high. The younger ones are smart enough to avoid any potential situation that might stir some conflict. But then again, you also sometimes get that some females or younger ones get grabbed by other males or other animals. They don't necessarily want that attention, and that's also the things about those severe screams and noises. One of the interesting things about primates in general, but especially the baboon, is the extremely keen sense of eyesight. Of course, a sense that serves them well, being able to peer over a landscape from up high in a tree. Very, very capable climbers. You can see the hands and feet, the odd tail. They don't have a prehensile tail. They fall in a group referred to as the Old World monkeys. So yes, they are a monkey. But their eyesight serves them well, spotting danger from afar, especially having a large amount of animals around, looking over a landscape, looking for danger. But they're also quite adept at finding danger nearby on the ground. Snakes, anything else. And of course, when they're near the water, something more immediate, like a crocodile. And that's why when they do find watering holes like this, which is quite tranquil without any immediate threat, they will spend a lot of time. Oh, just had a young Male baboon seems to have seized the moment there. Even though there's a lot going on, you can see that it also seems like a lot of time by individual baboons is spent sitting very still, opening up the front side of them. Oh, there's a yawn. Oh, I thought that baboon on the right might have a yawn. It would have been nice to get a good view of the teeth, especially the canines. These big male baboons have very, very long, very sharp canines, and that is their business end, and that's why they can be such a serious competitor. It's also why they are not taken too lightly, even by their predators. Like, for instance, the leopard. A big male baboon is quite a serious creature and should not be taken lightly, and that's why, especially in large groups like this, even top-end predators like the leopard will keep its distance if it knows that there's any risk of getting picked up on. And having said that, they'll still take their chance. I remember seeing a leopard a few years back, quite a small female leopard, an old female leopard, and she was feeding on a very large male baboon. And it struck me as I was looking at this situation unfolding, I was wondering how such a small animal be able to take such a large male baboon, especially considering the fact that the male baboons are quick, they're agile, they're very strong, they're also very capable climbers. And this situation stuck with me for a while, and it was only like a few weeks later I was watching a very large troop of baboons sitting under a big marula tree during marula season. Most of the troop was up in the trees, the young ones raiding the marulas and shaking the branches, and all of these marulas were just falling down. And as they were falling down, I watched this big, big male baboon sitting on the outskirts of the troop off to the side on his own. And in the afternoon sun, he was gradually dipping his head, falling asleep. And he was almost sitting in a position where he was hiding away from the rest of the troop, maybe to get a bit of the break of the young ones. But I remember that day I couldn't help thinking that maybe that, if I was a leopard, would be the time to seize the moment. And maybe that might be what happened. Or maybe something else happened and the leopard just got lucky. Most predators are opportunists and they will go whatever they can find. And often when big male baboons have disputes, the fights might be so severe that it results in the death of one. Joan Mello, a good afternoon to you. You are saying that you love baboons. I love baboons too. I love watching them. They can be quite bothersome neighbors if you have to live with them. But I do think if you understand them and if you stick to the rules and the ethics, then they are fascinating creatures to have around, and they're fascinating to watch indeed. Spaz Yankov, you are asking how often do baboons need to drink? It's a good question. I don't know, actually. They do drink regularly if they can. I know some baboons forage away from the water and they usually come down in the morning and then again in the evening. But if it's a hot day like it is today, and it seems to be quite hot here at Lentore in Kenya, then if it's available and there's no immediate threat, then they will drink regularly. They do have a diet, often high in fiber from the fruits that they eat, and they do eat a lot of various different things. Oh, there's a hammerkop that just came in. But they also eat a lot of fruits. Some of those fruits not often fully ripe, so high in tannins, and all of these dietary delights might add to an increased water consumption, especially if it's available. And I'm not too sure. I wouldn't say exactly I'd be recognizing each individual baboon here, but I'm pretty sure that some of these guys have come to drink more than once by now. So just looks like a little bit of interest there from a young baboon in that hammerkop, and he gave him a bit of a fright. Young ones make for some interesting interactions between other animals. Mostly out of curiosity. Where big guys like this big baboon makes it a little bit different. Their curiosity can often turn into something more serious during the lambing season for certain areas where animals like the impalas drop all their babies. The small baby antelopes are often grabbed and predated on by large male baboons. So definitely omnivores, certainly capable of more than just eating seeds and other plant material. They also eat a lot of insects. Sanjif Roy, you saying that these baboons are at a round table, having an extraordinary corporate meeting. It almost looks like that. That watering hole is a little bit of a round table, but have a look at that. Certainly comes with luxuries for those at the top end of the corporate structure. And here we're seeing quite a classical example. We can see that little one sitting there. He's got a nice spot. Look at that full rounded belly just chewing on something. Always interested in everything that's going on. And then this big male baboon here getting groomed like royalty by what I'm pretty sure is a female. Must be quite a high ranking baboon. That's why he's getting groomed like that. You can see he was even laying down. But now you can see this female is also getting a bit of a groom. And there's a same situation, different male. This also be quite a high-ranking male. Now, what you find sometimes in these baboon groups is, especially the larger groups, like this one seems to be, you have more than one dominant male, and they all have an uneasy truce. And it's constantly disputed and rectified and reorganized as to who sits at the top, who's the stronger, more dominant baboon. But there is also a healthy respect, knowing the capabilities. And what you find is that these males have their entourages of females. And these females kind of pick their favorites. And if a female from a lower ranking order, so females within this group, they're usually born within like a hierarchy within their troop. And they stay within that hierarchy, but they can occasionally, if they make the right choice and support a subordinate male from an early on period of time until he rises through the ranks, they might be able to rise through the ranks themselves. They support him, they show, they follow him, and he does reach the higher ranks, then they will follow. So that's one of the benefits of being loyal. That's why you often find that specific male baboons have their specific females following them. Having said that, they are partial to them, but that does by no means mean that they form a couple or a group. The females are also free to move about and interact with whoever they want, even if sometimes those interactions are not always welcomed by some of the larger, stronger males. Ari, you saying you love baboons but at a distance. Quite interesting, quite funny that you say that. Baboons are quite funny and they're quite often at a distance they might seem a bit scary, but they're actually quite fun and they mind their own business usually, like these guys have been doing. So I think we're going to leave them here. I heard we've got some hippos over at Salati Sunrise, so it'll be good to go check in the South African Lowveld and see what's happening there. Just look at that. Also having quite a relaxed old Christmas day. What a show. That's quite a lucky capture there. Showing us that big, notorious teeth or tusks. Tusks, not canines. Hippo is a herbivore, of course, and even though they've been known to nibble and chew on carrion and meat at some point, they mostly eat grass. Have a look at that. You can see those tusks are not nearly the same. What a big animal. Oh, it looked way deeper. Now I can see it. The hippo looks like I can see from the flow and the currents in the water that it looks like they're laying on a bank there. So let's see what this hippo does now. Now, judging from the size here, I'd say that first hippo that opened his mouth through the yawn, that is more than likely a big, more dominant male here. Judging from the size, the others look a little smaller. It would be interesting to see. Maybe we'll be able to tell just from the behavior. Watching these, from what I can count, 4 hippos, what the situation is. It looks like the 2 on the far right, or closest to us, might be a mother and a calf. Looks like the younger one, definitely smaller. The back is resting on the other one. Often something that the mother and calf might be doing. Maybe that big male just went under the water is a little bit more protective of that. Well, although now that hippo's moved, they look pretty similar in size. Could also just be 2 females pulling together. You can see there's another yawn. Let's see those bottom tusks as they come out. The one on the far left on his own, that one certainly had a lot smaller bottom tusks. So maybe if it is a male, it's a very young one and certainly wouldn't pose a threat to that big guy. Maybe that's why he's tolerant of him at this stage. Those yawns are often associated with the movement of other animals or creatures approaching, or other hippos approaching too close to personal spaces. And it's just a reminder that they do have those and they can use them as weapons should they need to. It's a way of showing off their bragging rights. Seems like the big hippos disappeared under the water there for a little while. And if the water's deep enough, he can stay down there for a little while. About 6 minutes in total, sometimes even a little bit longer, until an involuntary reflex pulls it back up. And for those of you that do not know, hippos, they do have some sort of a buoyancy system going, but they're not swimmers. They don't swim. They're hooved animals. And they kind of move, walk, or bounce at the bottom of the deeper rivers, lakes, and marshes that they occupy. Peter from the UK. Hi to you too. And you are asking, what do hippos like to eat? Hippos mostly eat grass. Now what we find is in areas where there's flowing water with lots of grasses near the water's edge, sometimes we see hippos feeding and being more active during the day. Although midday is usually spent like this. But hippos will travel at night time. They'll move quite far away from the water in order to get to some good grazing areas, some good grasses. They eat the rough grasses. Their digestive system isn't extremely efficient, so they eat a lot. And they bulk grazers, and they'll go and eat whatever they can. And you often find that whatever remains and goes through the digestive system comes out as quite rough grass. Mainly grass. They do also eat other water plants, in some cases water lilies. And there's also been other records of other plant species in certain areas. It depends on where you go and the types of habitats that they inhabit, but in the more classical savanna habitats in Africa, they generally mostly eat grass. And the taller shade-growing grass species that grows along the banks of the rivers. Now they've almost completely disappeared. That hippo lifted its head almost like it's looking, where did the others go? And as the hippos disappear under the water, we're going to go over to another creature that likes the waterways of Africa. We're going to head over to King's Camp for a terrapin. And just look at that. That is quite the sight. Right near the water's edge, you can see the water there in the background, reflecting and moving in the wind. Stretched out flat. They, all three of them, look a little wet. They've probably just come out of the water. Still very, very alert. You can hear what sounds like some Egyptian geese in the background. Now, on this little patch here where these three terrapin are laying, you can see looks like quite a lot of trampled and mashed down. It seems to be dung to me, actually. Maybe a hippo marking post or some old elephant dung. Now, being reptiles, these creatures, of course, need the sunlight to bask in the middle of the day. They spend a lot of time in the water. You can see all that moss and other whatever debris from the water covering the shell. You can see it looks like there's quite a thick muddy cover on the back in the shell, and these creatures often inhabit quite dirty little puddles of water. After the rains, you see them moving everywhere. Of course, they try and get from wherever they were hiding up until then. Brady, you asking why do they release a liquid when they get picked off the ground? Now, I'm not sure about terrapins actually. I've had the very I wouldn't really call it a pleasure, but I'd rather say it's more of an unpleasant experience, but also a fortunate experience of having had to pick up a terrapin in the past, more to move it out of the way or get it out of danger or remove it from an area where it shouldn't be. They don't do the same as what some tortoises do. The tortoise have a water storage compartment known as a bursa, which is an area that they keep water, and they actually keep that water for when they need to travel long distances as a backup reservoir. And they also use that and excrete that water as a defense mechanism, which can be quite a yeah, for a tortoise moving over a large area away from water when it's very dry, that can be still have severe consequences. But with a terrapin generally always being near water, I don't know if they do that, to be honest. I've never experienced it myself. These guys are predatory and they eat kind of whatever comes their way. They often nibble and chew on things that die in the water, carcasses, dead fish, and they're often in dirty, muddy water. You can see the claws there. They've got some webbing, but they've got very long, sharp claws. And then they have that very sharp ridge on the jawline. So I don't know if they've got the defense mechanism of excreting that water in the bursa. I don't even know if they have a bursa, to be honest. I know that they're quite foul smelling when you pick them up. I know that they bite, kind of like a snapping turtle in a way. And if you manage to have your finger in the wrong place, it can hurt quite badly. But then again, these guys also avoid danger quite well with very sharp eyesight. You can see that's why their heads are up like that. As soon as something stirs nearby, they'll be back and into that water. And talking about the bursa and the tortoise, one of the major differences between these guys and the tortoise is, besides diet, of course, and preference for habitat, is that they also can't retract their head like the tortoise can. They usually put it off to the side and kind of just pull their limbs in. But that's been quite a interesting sighting to see, and I've noticed as we've watched them, you can see the shells are starting to dry out. And I think these guys will probably sit here for a little while there's no disturbance. So we're going to head over to Tau, where we're going to be doing some birding. Wow, what a sight! And here we have a heron. A heron that looks quite bored currently. There's a stretch there. Found a nice little spot to nestle itself in and hide away out of sight or in plain sight, as they do. An interesting array of fellows around here. There seems to be some common moorhens. Wow, just look at that. What a beautiful green flush. And this is quite a welcome surprise for me, not having seen Tau or Madikwe for a little while. You can even see that barren grey patch of lime-rich soil there in the background. All seems to have a green tinge to it. And it seems like that tree on the water's edge has somehow just managed to hold on to the end of the dry season. You can see some white-faced whistling ducks. You can see all these channels opened up by the elephants still there, but the grass certainly started growing, providing these guys with some good areas to forage and hide. See the moorhen going through these channels looking for whatever's coming down. You can see a lot of flying insects going around. One thing that I notice, even though I can't see from this angle, is I don't see any elephants in here currently. Which I'm assuming is because there might be a lot of other water sources available now that wasn't for a long time. You see another two white-faced whistling ducks just roosting there in the long grass. Some vigorous preening going on there. From the one on the right, the other one's resting. Its bill sheathed under the wing. I do wonder where the crocodiles are, and if they're still here or if they've moved. Quite a bit of Egyptian geese there. I know at one point we saw what seemed to be a very lonely spurwing goose around this pan here at Tau. Just look at that. All kinds of greenery growing on the opposite edge. Even that rock is not as thickly plastered in mud as it used to be, so I'm assuming it doesn't have as much visitors anymore. And what do we have there? That is a very, very interesting visitor, a South African shelduck. It looks like a female. That is extremely impressive. What a beautiful bird. Bird known to frequent drier areas like we have here at Taal, the side of South Africa. And at a distance, I didn't notice it immediately. It does look very similar to the. Oh, look at that. A little wash. I find that fascinating. It looks like that little muddy dip in the old elephant track. Looks quite dirty to me from here, but it's clearly well utilized by this duck. What a beautiful bird indeed. An interesting bird indeed as well. Mindy Tilipo, you saying that there was a big croc sighting here yesterday? I didn't realize that. I'm very, very happy to hear that. And you got to watch one eat an antelope. That is pretty impressive. In fact, at one point I was wondering whether these crocs are actually big enough to take one of these antelopes. So that's a very, very impressive sighting, and I'm very, very happy to hear that you got to have that opportunity. I know things like that aren't always easy to watch, but it's part of the circle of life out here, and a very, very rare sighting indeed. So I think by now that crocodile will be digested and probably very, very full. And Spasiankov, I'm so happy that it's your first African shelduck. Well, it's my first one seen here at Tau, that's for sure. I know that they are found here, and I was hoping to see them, and I'm surprised I only got to see one now, but I can see there's quite a few interesting birds around here. Oh, there's a baboon and some impala as well. But I thought I saw a common green shank. Maybe I might be wrong. In the distance. Oh, no, it's a black-winged stoat. There's a few of them there. There's a blacksmith lapwing. Looks like some teals. There's a red-knobbed coot. Phew, very, very busy here. I'm not too sure about the teals. I guess it would be red-billed teals, but it's difficult to say with their bills being tucked away. And that grey heron. I'm quite excited about the shelduck, quite an interesting bird. A few birds, if not the only one known in this region to be nesting underground. In an area like this provides ample opportunities for the critters here, like the Oh, there we go. I can see what seems to be the remnants of an antelope, if I'm not mistaken. It's either that or something else. It looks like it. I'm assuming that might be what the crocs were feeding on. But to get back to the shell ducks, from what I understand, they nest in old aardvark burrows, old sometimes porcupine and other burrows. And I can see behind the one stilt, I can see some smaller waders. But from this distance, I would make a guess at best. So I'll leave them until one of them wanders up closer to the African. What I do like about these watering holes is just the life that suddenly explodes and comes together. Oh, there's a three-banded plover. After the rains, once they fill up, they become extremely busy, and often you have a lot of regular visitors to some of these, especially way out in the drier regions where you have some interesting visitors coming from afar. And you also have some very, very rare visitors coming sometimes. Now we have the Egyptian geese having their bathing time. You can see the shell duck preening her feathers, making sure she's covering everything, straightening out the feathers rather. An interesting array of colors there. Shell duck's just that little bit more colorful than the Egyptian goose, and you can see smaller, of course. I am amazed with the beauty of this green flush that we have here, and you can imagine that there must have been some incredible sightings around here lately. You can see all the impala creatures feeding on the short grass. I'm sure the wildebeest will also be coming here. That's incredible to see. Look at that. Still have all that old elephant dung balls in the area. Lots of white rocks now, clearly white. There's a baboon coming in. Looks quite thirsty, but I just had to stop to make sure that there's something there, something good to eat. And it's interesting, a little while back it was hardly possible to distinguish between what's actually rocks and what's just the barren soil. And I wonder where it's going. It looks like it's going to Tau. Oh, there we go. It was quite easy. He's on his way to go book in. Doesn't seem to be stopped at all there, or not even in the smallest grain of hesitation. Now I can see here the ecological aspects of the elephant still playing its role. These little waterways playing an extremely important role in providing the pools of water needed for some of these creatures. And I see Greg has asked what attracts birds to some watering holes more so than others. That's a good question, Greg. It depends on a lot of factors, and it depends on the bird itself and the time of the year. Of course, availability is the first thing, but then also you have a lot of these waterfowl that come to areas where water is quite shallow rather than the deeper lakes and rivers. Of course, you have those that prefer the, the deeper lakes and rivers, but you also have those that prefer the shallow pans, usually ducks, and a lot of the creatures we see here, the moorhens, the coots, they like the shallow pans and watering holes. So the morphology, the actual shape and size and depth of the water, so there's a whole bunch of factors. So all of those influence what type of food sources might be found in the area. And then also you have the larger mammals in the area also affecting the shape depending on the time of the year. And then some visitors like that blacksmith lapwing, Egyptian goose, they pretty much near every watering hole, especially around South Africa's northern parts. And we have common moorhen. What a beautiful bird. So just picking off whatever little creatures are moving about near these puddles of water. Jody, I only see a question from you now. You've asked why are shell ducks called shell ducks? I'm not 100% sure. From what I understand, it comes from shell is from an old word for pied, referring to the fact that it's got that white and grey colouring on the head, especially of the female, and the back. And that's what I'm assuming it comes from. But there's also in the Americas, there's the shell drakes or the shell geese, which is larger birds. I'm assuming that's where it comes from. Quite an interesting, quite a beautiful bird to see here. But I think we have had some good birding here at Tau this afternoon, so we're going to head over to the lady and see what's happening there. Oh wow, baby impala. I was wondering when I'd get to see some of these guys. Now, I haven't seen too many on here. In fact, actually, this is my first ones I've seen here on live at the watering hole. And you can see they're in quite a playful mood here on this overcast day. Have a look, reacting to one another's movements in a very playful manner. Beautiful little creatures. You can see some of them still got some clear size differences between them. And I'm assuming that would be literally a difference of about a week or two between the ages. I only really saw my first one less than a month ago in the region that I stay. And I know they've been around, but on the area that I have been in, which is the central South African lowveld, the numbers haven't been as numerous as I would have expected. And they also come quite late this year for the larger numbers, which is probably indicative of the fact that the rutting season was a little bit later, the mating season was a little bit later. And I wonder why that would be, considering that the rats usually start to kick into motion with the shortening of days. So technically anything from now going forward, at least that's one of the predominant theories. But of course, there's also a lot of factors to play in, and the availability of water and food and the readiness of females to meet their nutritional requirements. We'll definitely play in on that. What beautiful little creatures. I can see from this herd here in the lady, these little ones are already starting to form pressures. Moving together. It's quite a stressful time for the females. Knowing that the little ones are in and amongst the bunch. Obviously, the more bunching together, the better the chances of surviving the onslaught of any predators. We find it quite amazing to watch the bigger herds with the larger creches carefully. If you watch the females, like every now and again they'll go and they'll look for the little one, just sniffing all the others, going through them each individually to find their little one, try and feed it. But at this point, these little ones are already chewing on grasses and leaves. It looks like it's quite a windy afternoon here in Olifants. You can see those tails going vigorously. There's also be a complete onslaught of flies in these impalas. Their coats seem to have brightened up, a little bit redder than usual. Likely due to the more readily available nutrition. It looks like they hardly have any heads up except for the little ones looking around. Impala are so thankful for all the good grass that started to grow. This area has been quite devoid of rain up until recently. I'm pretty sure a lot of people in the region would agree, would appreciate a little bit more rain. Something's drawn their attention. That might just be other impalas. It's always worth it to have an extra careful and good look, especially now with all the little ones around. And there's a little one coming in. Looks like I want to have a drink from the mother. Here we go. I really like watching the way these little ones use their head to just lump the mother. Just give the mother's belly and memories a little bump of big butt. Fully consumed by the process, getting its milk from its mum. You can see the mum, of course, knows they might be slightly vulnerable, so it's also extra care taken and scouting their surroundings. You can see the nostrils flaring wide, picking up on whatever trails might be traveling with the wind, and of course the ears moving vigorously around in this windy weather. That's the one thing that drops, is the sense of hearing, or the chance to hear movement. Doesn't stop them from trying. Looks quite windy here at Willifants. Nina, you're asking if it's true that impala can delay the births of lambs if the environment is not yet right or right for them to have the lambs. So they can't really delay their birth. Like, biologically, that's not possible. So what they do is due to other. Oh, there's a green woodhoopoe hiding away there in a quite well concealed hole. It's quite a nice surprise. But Nina, to answer your question, impalas can't delay their births. They have their gestation period, and the birth will take place after that. But due to environmental factors not being ideal or other factors playing in, what might happen is the actual period when the mating happens might not happen at the same time annually as it is supposed to, due to the fact that there's not sufficient nutrition or available water for the animals to start moving into the areas where the males will compete, and a whole bunch of other factors. Maybe the males aren't strong enough to feel like they can stake a claim. But also, what I've noticed is with these changes in environmental factors, you often find that there's like a lot of odd births here and there, like those ones that's already ready versus the ones that only get ready within a couple of weeks later than usual. So they don't delay their births, they still have this set gestation period, roughly, and that determines when the little ones will be born. But the environmental factors certainly might play a part in when the height of the rut starts, and most females therefore mate and get impregnated. Mindy Telepo, are you saying the baby's got the zoomies? I'm not sure I know what that means, to be honest. But I guess they do. I've noticed there's also a few of these females that still seem pregnant. All of these open spaces are getting utilized by the impala now. And the impalas in some regions will form quite large herds, I'm sure. What a beautiful change in the environment here. You can see it looks like there's even some algae in the water. What a green little pond. So I'm sure that well there on the side gets heavily utilized by the elephant currently. Penelope Kenyon, a happy Christmas to you too from all of us here at Wild Earth. Just look at that beautiful creche of baby impalas. See those white tail tips vigorously going in the wind with all the flies and what a beautiful sight. An explosion of life this time of the year. Summertime in the bushveld is my favorite time. So, I've actually just been informed that zoomies is when the animals get overexcited and when they just start to run around. What an interesting expression. Personally, I haven't heard it. But then again, I sometimes do miss a lot of stuff, but it's pretty exciting stuff. And indeed, these little ones do have the zoomies. When we got to this African this afternoon, these little ones were playing around and the excitement affecting one another's. You can see the little ones playing at the back there. It looks like the time near the watering hole is drawing to an end now. I can see. Looks like they're gradually moving towards a denser bush. You can see still need some rain. There's still some bare patches, even though there's some new growth, which is amazing to see. Those well-worn elephant pathways are still quite clearly visible, and even some patches on the termite mounds, the lower termite mounds. It would be interesting to see what the global weather patterns have in store for the South African lowveld over the next 3 or 4 years or so. One of my favorite things I often talk about and think about when I watch impala is how they clearly illustrate the herd mentality. And, when we think about animals in groups, we often think that they band together out of safety, which they do. The more eyes, the more ears, the better. Concern for the well-being of the others. If you watch them carefully, you'll notice the ones on the outskirts constantly move to the middle. They're right in the middle of the bunch. Don't want to be left on the side. Rather have the others on the side get taken off and picked off by predators than themselves. So the herd mentality very much stems from a level of understanding of self-preservation. When I watch these baby impalas, you can see the younger ones, like this mother and her young one standing closest to us. They don't quite have a full grasp of that yet. They are the ones out on the side. So if babies get born much later than the rest, those are usually the babies that get picked off first. And that's also what predators do. And part of their ecological role is to make sure that the weaker animals get picked off. So only the stronger, more capable ones survive. I can hear the wind going. It seems like it's almost picked up a little bit. And that's also why these impala are bundling together like this, staying close. More little ones currently in the group. The better it is to stick close to each other. What a beautiful antelope. It's such a important, well-known species within the southern African bushveld. welcome sight. All the little ones this time of the year. And it's quite synonymous with this period of time just before Christmas and up until Christmas, which is the normal period where they drop their little babies and sort of synchronized mating and birthing of these ones is they can be a survival tactic. And the little ones, and so many, we just cannot pick off all of them. And considering predators being territorial often, and only a set amount within a certain region, and only a set amount of impalas within a certain region, utilizing the same watering holes, we often tend to think about the predators like leopard or lion, for instance. We know the characters, we know their faces, we can even recognize them. We know they move in this area, that area, but when we see creatures like impala, we generally don't tend to think about it. They occupy their home ranges, their little patches. So we do tend to see the same groups of impalas near areas. If they've got more than enough young, then the predators won't be able to take all of them. The predators generally less than species of antelopes or the prey animals. And you can see there, you're witnessing one of the benefits of herd life. Being able to clean the hard to reach parts behind the ears and the necks, like those little ones are already practicing. So that's quite interesting to see. They're fully settling into life within the herd. Oh, and there comes a male. Super interesting. Let's see what he does. These big male impalas are often not too considerate about the little ones. He seems quite relaxed at this time. Passing through. Fred, you're asking if impalas are the only animals that flood the market. Um, in this region, they're the most common one to do so, and that's mainly due to, I think, your past human influence on the wilderness areas of South Africa. And South Africa used to have open areas like a lot of the rest of Africa. We used to have large herds of game. Of course, these were fenced off some years back and separated and fragmented, and due to that, certain species ceased to exist in the numerous large herds that we see in some other areas in Africa. But they were here nevertheless. So long ago, yes, I'm sure animals like the wildebeest, for instance, would have also flooded the market with all their babies at the same time, as they do in some other areas. Impalas are certainly not the only ones, but in this particular region, they are the most numerous one and the most well-known one. But what an interesting adaptation. And those more fascinating aspects or survival strategies that we see out here. A constant reminder of that contrast between life and death, a situation of extremes, and it's visible in all aspects. in the animals' lives, in the climate, in the weather. And it's also what is so beautiful about these wilderness areas, and I'm assuming that part of what we like in these areas, or what we admire about these areas, the reason why we come back to these areas, is seeing these contrasts and daily struggles develop in front of us and play out. A beautiful big tree there. You can see some mud still on the tree. Looks like a large body. Looks all the way high up, maybe 2 times the height, shoulder height of one of these impalas. So I'm assuming an elephant. Let's move past there, but it's interesting to notice that there's not that much more immediate fresh signs of elephant around. Now we've noticed and we've seen lots of elephant during the drier parts up until very recently, actually, like about a month ago. And now suddenly after the rains, we see a lot less elephant. And it goes to show, once the rains come, the elephant move. They go to the areas that they were avoiding while it was so dry, due to the fact that they have more readily accessible water in these parts. These western edges of the Kruger Park area, where the man-made watering holes play a big role with providing surface water essential for the survival of the animals during these periods of drought. And it's interesting to first-hand witness the effects they have on animal movements. Now let's see if that woodhopper is still there. It's a bit windy and a bit overcast for this bird to be out today, so it was a nice relaxing day there in its nook. You can see that stump also rubbed smooth from large animals. You can see some packed mud with all kinds of stuff stuck in it. Nice little rocky outcrop there at the back. And with all these impala around, that would be the perfect spot for a leopard to just carefully watch the little ones, waiting its chance. It's also something about this time of the year is, from a game viewing point of view, certain creatures like the leopard become a little bit more tricky to spot due to the denseness of the bush and the available water, and the fact that they don't have to travel their regular used routes. They can just stay in one place. But what I find is that they often, when they get the chance and they have these little impalas available as meals, they will go after that. And they might spend some time in a relatively small area of their territories without moving too much. You can see they're still huddled together. I'm not going to stray too far from the herd on a windy day like this. Oh, we've got a clear view of that white and black markings there on the back side of the impala. And we got a question from Gia asking if those black lines warm or cool there. That's a very good question, Gia. I do not actually know 100%. I think they might certainly play a little part in that, the black absorbing heat and the white reflecting heat. It does help a little bit with the creation of some microcurrents and therefore a little bit of a cooling effect. But in reality, these markings or lines actually serve as part of the counter shading effect camouflage of the impala and helping it blend in. Not so much this time of the year, but especially during the drier periods of the year. And then, of course, one of the more supported theories is that it also draws parasites, like ectoparasites, like ticks, for instance, that move to those black markings, those black lines, due to the heat. And that enables the impalas through the use of their grooming, which is done by using the lower jaw and the incisors, which is the front teeth. It kind of acts like a little bit of a comb. You can comb through the fur in those regions and then remove the parasites. So those areas are thought to draw parasites to them and then make it a little bit more readily available to remove for the antelope. At least that's one theory. I don't think there's 100% consensus on that or what exactly the reason for those black lines are. I think with these things often it's more than likely a combination of a couple of things, more so than one specific reason. It could also play a little role in distraction or attraction. There's also a theory that suggests that some of those white markings are for when they are moving quickly through the bush. If they're running within a group, those white markings help show the way to the ones following behind. You can see which way is the other one's going. And so as long as the white marking in front of them keeps moving, that means the one in front's still alive, so the one at the back should be safe following the same route. So yeah, I think it might be a combination of a whole bunch of factors as to what exactly the role of those markings are, Gia. Just have a look at that now. I can see from that paler green leaves, it looks like a lot of raisin bushes out there. These shrubs created by the elephants. I can see along with the dead trees in the area, it looks like there is Quite a bit of elephant activity here, and that's very likely due to this watering hole when it's dry. So now with the rains and the animals moving away, these areas are getting a bit of a rest period during the raining season, which is welcomed, especially by animals like the impala that prefer grass this time of the year. Antelope very well adapted for eating both on leaves and on grass. If it's available, like this time of the year, they'll go after the grass. And of course, as long as they've got standing water, impala is a creature that's hardly ever found further than 6 kilometers from standing water, max 10. And the best stomping grounds, which will already be in play. Males will already start to scope areas out. They'll already start to defend areas from other males for when the rut season is in full swing. The areas closest to the watering holes with the most readily available access will be the most sought after. But yeah, what a beautiful, beautiful afternoon we've had. Amazing birding, amazing animals. Beautiful to see all the life return to some of these areas. And of course, what an amazing old Christmas day. And I feel very fortunate to be sharing this afternoon with all our viewers. And I've certainly enjoyed having a look to see what's happening around the watering holes on this day. I would like to thank all our viewers for joining us this afternoon. And I hope you join us again tomorrow. But otherwise, from me and everybody at Wild Earth, a very Merry Christmas. And we'll see you next time.